This week on Q&A, our guest is Kike Arnal, a photographer whose latest work features images of poverty, drug abuse, and prostitution in Washington, D.C. The book is called In the Shadow of Power.
Kike Arnal, photographer responsible for this book. What is this picture on the cover?
Well, that's a picture I took on McPherson. So a metro station, just coming out of the station, pretty close to the White House. He's a homeless guy begging for money.
And why did you put that on the cover?
Well, I think it epitomizes the situation of the Capitol. Actually, it shows the contrast, which is easy to see in many places, but it's very dramatic to see it so close to the White House.
You've got 92 pictures, I believe, in this book. When did you start the process?
I started to photograph in 2003, and it took me about 250 days of work in the city throughout a period of 3 years. So I basically finished by the end of 2006.
Why did you do it?
Why did I do it? Well, it's a little bit of a story. I came to do an assignment photographing the public library system of the city in the year 2002. While driving around, going to the different branches of the DK public library system, I discovered a different Washington that I never expected. You know, for me, Washington was the first contact that I have with Washington was when my mother brought me a T-shirt from Washington. When I was a kid, it said Washington, our nation's capital, and I was always curious about these monuments in the picture in the T-shirt. And then I discovered the beautiful Washington when I came by myself the first time. I saw the mall, all the monuments, all the museums. But then, while shooting this assignment, I discovered another Washington, and that proposed me, gave me the desire of discovery, you know, like peeling an onion, just discovering what is beyond those monuments, what's happening in those neighborhoods on the other side of the Anacostia River.
What's the accent?
The accent is from Venezuela.
When did you come to the States?
I came to the States about 12 years ago. I moved to New York to work as a photojournalist.
And when did you first come to this country?
No, I came many years ago. I always traveled to the United States.
We'll go over that later, but I wanted to ask you before we move on from this picture, what's the symbolism of this picture?
Well, this is the mall, this is the Washington Monument, and everybody knows it, and it really represents I guess the magnificence and the beauty of the Capitol.
But it's got some fog in there.
Yeah, it was actually taken at night. It's a very dramatic photo, and I think I like it a lot. I think it's a good image. So it's a powerful image. That's how we open the book.
And the next picture is the one that you put on the cover.
Yeah.
And then there is this one, teenagers in their cells at Oak Hill, a detention center outside of Washington filled with youth from D.C. These are cut lines that you have in the book. The correctional center has a reputation for bad management, poor living conditions, and drug activity. And this was Laurel, Maryland in 2005.
Yep. Well, by now the center has been closed, which is, I'm very glad to know that it's been closed. And I think they're opening a new place, which I guess they are trying to improve the conditions for the youth.
How did you pick this site to go there?
It was difficult to get access. It was important for me to show what's happening with the kids in the city, and I managed to get access photographing. First, I had to photograph the kids without showing their identities, and second, I have to give something in exchange. And I put together a series of workshops, photography workshops for the kids, and it was a very enjoyable experience to work with them. So I spent like 2 weeks teaching them photography.
Homeless people sleeping on the benches of Daniel Webster Square, a few blocks away from the affluent area of DuPont Circle Northwest here in Washington. These benches have since been removed.
Yeah, I was surprised when after a few weeks after that, I took that photo, I went back and the benches were there.
And all of these people here they're people behind those
homeless,
blankets.
just living there. And they, when I went back, none of them were at the place anymore.
Did you have guidance on this book as to where to go?
Well, I did walk many, many miles, and I drove a lot of miles. Actually, if I decide to leave photography, I could actually start working as a cab driver in Washington, D.C. But I talked to many people, to many non-for-profit organizations to get assistance from them, just to understand and to get access to people, because it wasn't necessarily easy to photograph some of the situations.
All this says is a schoolgirl at the Lincoln Memorial.
Well,
Did you know her?
Sorry?
Did you know her?
No. Her family was there. Her parents were taking a photo of her, and I thought it was a fantastic situation. It's Lincoln and this cute girl, and I love it.
Is there symbolism there for you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's I mean, as we know, Lincoln liberated the slaves, and I think it's a beautiful image that talks a lot about America.
Why did you decide to do black and white, and what kind of a camera did you use?
Black and white, I think, is my favorite choice for photography, because it delivers the message without getting distracted by colors, and I like it. I guess you can do black and white or color. It's just a personal choice. And for this project, most of my camera gear was Leica, classic Leica film camera.
Now, here is, I guess it's the obvious. It's on the mall with the Washington Monument, but all you see in the picture at an evening concert is white people.
Yeah, that really surprised me, because this is a large majority African American population in the city, and you don't get to see them participating in many of the activities that are usually happening around the mall. So that surprised me.
But this is a free concert open to everyone.
Yeah, I know.
Why do you think they're not there?
That's a good question. I guess they don't feel that they belong to these activities. I mean, I really would like to figure it out. I don't have the answer for that. But it was surprising to see most of the people going to the mall are white people, and the African American community don't participate as much.
And here's one with a silhouette tourist at the Washington Monument on a summer night. Did you do that at the same time?
No, it was a different time, but I wanted to show the splendor of the monument and the tourists going around even at night, these areas that are safe. And I wanted to compare that to some other areas like in Southeast, Anacostia, Benning Road. People don't get out anywhere because it's kind of dangerous.
Then the next picture is soccer team at RFK Stadium, named after Robert F. Kennedy. What are you seeing in this picture?
Well, we see an African American vendor selling beers and basically a white crowd. And again, it's just a comparison, just to make people think how is the social dynamics of the city.
How many pictures did you take in order to get these 92?
The whole process is thousands of images. It was a very difficult decision to pick which ones to publish in the book. It was a long process, also with the help of some photo editors, some colleagues, and by the end, the 92 pictures, I think, represent the best of the work.
And this is Georgetown University Hoyas football team during practice, taken through what?
Through the fence. This hole is in the fence of the field that I guess, this protected, is wrapped with a fabric. I don't know what it's for, but I took it through that hole.
What are you seeing in that from a substance standpoint?
From the what?
In other words, what's the meaning to you of that picture?
It's kind of sneaking into this situation, which is also, I'm from outside, just trying to understand what's going inside. And a lot of the images in the book have that touch a little bit of someone who's outside trying to understand what's happening inside.
Here's Sunday ice skating at the National Gallery of Art Sculpture Garden. And there's something I want to ask you about. It's hard, I think, for the audience to see this, but if we get a close-up, you can see it right in here. It looks like it's either a reflection.
It's a reflection. If you remember, the place has a glass around. It's a kind of a glass veranda. So I took it from outside. So that's a reflection of the veranda.
And again, all white people? Is there a reason?
Well, what I wanted to show with this photograph is that beautiful side of Washington, which is an incredible place, but it happened to be, as you said, only white people. But that wasn't my intention with this particular image. It was just to show how beautiful, how enjoyable can be being in the mall on a Sunday morning.
Now
Even in winter.
You get some direct symbolism, I suspect, in these two photographs. On the one that's on the screen, a crowded National Theater lobby during a presentation of the musical Moving On, located on Pennsylvania Avenue. The National Theater is a historic landmark. Again, right next to it is another picture from the National Theater. Homeless people sleeping under the marquee of the National Theater. When did you discover that there was this contrast?
Actually, it was very early in my project. As soon as I started to walk around the city, I realized that it was a city with many homeless, many more homeless than, for example, in New York, where I was living at the time.
You're saying more homeless than in New
Yeah,
York?
yeah, definitely more. More at least that I can see. Yeah, they were all over the place.
And the National Theater is 2 blocks from the White House.
It's 2 blocks from the White House. Yes.
When you take these photographs, do you have to ask anybody's permission?
Sometimes, depending on the situation. For example, on that one, I didn't ask. I didn't get close enough. You cannot realize their identities. But in some situations, I do spend a lot of time talking to people.
What about this one right here? Because you can.
That was a casual shot in the opening night of that show. Yeah, that I didn't ask anyone. It was just like any journalist, any photojournalist taking photographs.
What's the rules on that?
In what way? I mean,
in other words, are there rules on copyright and whether or not you have to get people's...
This is an open public space, and I don't think there is any problem with that. For example, in that, there are images that I definitely needed to have permission from the person that I photograph, and I did obtain those.
We talked a little bit about this in the beginning. When did you first discover there were 2 Washingtons?
As soon as I started to work on that library project, the Library of Washington project.
Can you remember when you first discovered it?
It was in 2002.
No, but I mean when you first said, "Oh my goodness, I'm seeing
when
2
I
Washingtons."
crossed Benning Road into Southeast.
And why were you doing the library project?
I was actually hired by the Center for the Study of Responsive Law, which is one of Ralph Nader's non-for-profit organizations, and they wanted to push the library system. They wanted to create some support for the library system, so they hired me to document the condition of the branches. So that's what I went to all the 27 branches at the moment to photograph. And as soon as I left Northwest and I went Northeast or Southeast, I realized, wow, this is not what you know. This is not your typical Washington, D.C. But at the end, it became the typical Washington, D.C. if you just step out of the mall and out of Northwest.
Yeah, in other words, Washington, start with the Capitol in the center, and you have the quadrants off of it.
Yeah.
And you're saying that Northeast, Southwest, Southeast are different than Northwest Washington.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What's the difference?
The social level, the social conditions.
Here's a picture or a photo. D.C. police officers arrest a young man after he allegedly attempted to break into an apartment in Crestwood Northwest.
Yeah, I took that photo. I managed to get permission from the police department to ride with them in the night shifts, and the condition was, again, you can show identities of the people. So that was kind of a challenge, but for maybe 4 or 5 nights I drove with them trying to get a few situations to illustrate the crime and some of the problems that the city has.
A woman is not handicapped, but handcuffed and detained by Washington Metropolitan Police for driving without a license. This is on Georgia Avenue. This was in 2004. And then we go to a barbershop, Central Avenue in Southeast Washington.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite shots also. People were really open. I got there and I used this panoramic camera actually, and I took this wonderful picture of the barbershop in this very run-down place.
How many times did you have to visit this barbershop to get a photo like this?
In this case, I only went once. I talked to the people. They opened up to me. It was easy.
Homeless people on a sidewalk along Florida Avenue, that's in Northwest.
Yeah, that's in Northwest crossing going, yeah.
Did you have to ask their permission?
No, I was driving and I just snapped a photo.
And you used here a technique where you took a shot showing, did you know you were going to show this?
Yeah.
And what was the purpose?
Well, U-Haul, people living. This is at the time when I was taking the photograph with the process of gentrification, a lot of people were going away from Washington, so I thought it was cool to have it in the mirror.
Next page, you do a similar photograph over here, showing again what in the mirror?
Handler, someone begging for money, and
that's at Benning Road, which you say made a big difference when you first got there. This is go ahead.
What is important maybe to understand, I come from Latin America. I'm accustomed to see poverty. You know, there are a lot of slums, and we have a lot of problems in most countries in Latin America, but I was never expecting to find this kind of poverty in the capital of the U.S. That was a big surprise for me.
This is a crew of Latino workers fixing a street in downtown Washington. While Anthony Williams was mayor, and that's some time ago, the Capitol went through a beautification campaign intended to change the face of the city. Many poor residents were forced to move to Maryland and Virginia during those years. Is this a human being right here?
No.
No.
I guess those are clothes or...
Who wrote your cut lines? Who wrote
I did some of the writing, and someone edited those for me.
Cooling off around a fire hydrant during a 100-degree summer day. This is Benning Terraces, southeast. We'll turn the page.
I took those photographs of the hydrant and the kids having fun in the hydrants. It was at the time when they were discussing about closing down like 4 or 5 swimming pools in the city of the recreation facilities.
Did they close them down?
I can't recall, but those were the plans, and most of them were in the northwest.
Here's an excavator working during a demolition of East Capitol dwellings.
Yeah, that's
behind the Capitol.
That's already gone. When I went there first time, there were still people living, and then they tear it down and they built this wonderful new housing project for middle class people. So a lot of the people that were living there couldn't live anymore.
How often do you work in black and white?
A lot. Most of my work is in black and white.
Was this shot digitally or on film?
No, this is film. This is
what
classic.
Kind of film do you use?
I use Tri-X most of the times, Kodak Tri-X.
No flash?
A few times flash, but most I don't use flash.
What kind of a Leica do you use?
M6.
And why is that better than M7?
Well, that's the one that I have. They are pretty pricey. There are machines that last forever, but I like the quality of the lenses. I like how silent they are. They're really quiet cameras. So they're tiny. They don't call attention. So those are great tools for this kind of work.
Now, the photographs you showed of the demolition, and then you show here construction workers.
Same place. Same place, 1 or 2 years later.
And right here are the new
houses. Yes.
And you say that the homes start at $299,000?
Yep. At the moment.
The redevelopment project received at least $30 million in government grants. Do people get help also buying them besides building them?
I'm not sure. Honestly, I don't know the answer to that question, but I guess they do, but I can't be absolutely sure about it.
How much of this is photography for you, and how much of it is social engineering that you're involved in?
I think I definitely have a lot of sensibility. Is that a word?
Or sensitivity.
Sensitivity, all right. And I like to work on social issues. If you check my work, a lot of the images I produce, a lot of the projects that I get involved are related to social issues.
For the moment, I'm going to break away from this and go to your website because, and by the way, how do people get to your website?
It's www.kikearnal.com.
And what's the purpose of the website?
Most photojournalists or freelance photographers, we need to have a website, so it's a window to see what we do. So people can decide, well, this is the kind of photographer I want to hire for a project or for an assignment.
We grabbed off of this the munition site, and before we show any of the photographs, explain what it is.
Well, in 2007, I went after 1 year of the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel armed forces. I went to photograph victims of cluster bombs, cluster munitions, and I spent 1 month documenting the life of people after having accidents or losing arms or legs to cluster bombs.
Were they all shot in the Gaza area?
No, this is in South Lebanon.
Oh, in South Lebanon.
So Hezbollah.
Hezbollah, that's right,
Hezbollah,
not Hamas.
Yeah.
And what was the goal for after you took these pictures? Who did you want to sell them, or did?
No. This was just to produce. I worked out my way to get grant funds from some organizations to photograph these, and then this was exhibited in the United Nations. This work.
Okay, this first photo of a young man in a swimming pool.
Hamoudi is his name, and he was riding a motorbike with his dad in the final days of the conflict, and they happened to drive on top of the cluster bomb, and he was burned. He lost both his legs, and it was like 60-70% of his body was burned.
Next photo is.
This is a mother who lost her son to a cluster bomb that was hanging from a tree. The kids were playing. The cluster bomb fell. The kid died 3 or 4 months after the conflict ended. I mean, the problem with cluster bombs is that even 3 years after the conflict, they are still victims. Happening every month, some people get killed or lose their leg. Or
this photo.
That's a cluster bomb. That's about the size of a battery. A battery, maybe about the size of a cell phone, tiny cell phone.
What did you say to these folks when you wanted to take their picture?
Again, I spent a lot of time working with NGOs, people from the United Nations. I talked to them. I maybe visit them 3 or 4 times before I can photograph them, or before I get the photo that I think is good enough to show to the public.
How often do people say to you, no?
A few times, actually, especially in some of these areas that are kind of conservative, and some of them didn't want to talk.
How did you do this photo?
This is a composite. There are 3 pictures together. And I was using a black background just to show in detail the injuries.
And what did you say to those 3 people that you were going to do with those photographs?
Well, all of them was my same approach. I'm documenting your life, where the consequences of documenting your life can be that the people might raise more funds for clearing the areas that have cluster bombs. So they actually opened up to the idea, and they wanted to talk about their problems.
What about this photo?
Same condition, same situation. I mean, the one on the left is a kid who stepped on a cluster bomb. He loved soccer. He was taken to Italy. He got many operations and still couldn't save his toes. The woman on the right, in the middle, is a young mom, and she didn't allow me to photograph her face, but he lost her whole foot. And the guy on the right is a 55, 60 years old father of family, 4 children, poor person who works in the field, and with this injury, it's very hard for him to work anymore.
Where do you live now?
I live in Oakland, California.
Why?
I actually wanted to live in a quiet place close to nature, and I think California has a beautiful backcountry where you can escape every once in a while.
How long have you lived there?
For a couple of years.
This photo is of a Lebanese?
Yes, it's Lebanese, yes. This young man was working on a mechanic garage, and he grabbed a piece of an engine outside, and there was a cluster bomb on top, and he blew his hand. That's how he lost his...
Do you interview someone like that?
Yes, I did video interviews of all these people. I'm actually working on a documentary about how his life after the cluster bomb accident.
And what are you going to do with the documentary?
Well, I'm still figuring out how I'm going to broadcast it. That's the idea, to broadcast it, to show it to as many people as possible.
What organizations have you done documentaries for?
I have worked as a field producer for films with National Geographic, BBC, Natural History Unit, also UNICEF in South America, in Venezuela, the place where I come from. Yep.
Where did you grow up in Venezuela?
Yep, in Caracas.
What do you think of the leader of Venezuela?
Well, I can say that there's a lot of room to improve.
A lot of room for him to improve, or a lot of room for the country to improve?
For both.
Is he a popular leader, Mr.
Yeah,
Chavez?
He's still popular, yes. I don't think he's as popular as he was in the past, but yes, he's still popular.
Could you have the same freedom in Venezuela to do what you do as you do here?
No.
Why not?
Oh, I don't think people will like me to show this kind of work there.
So what would they do? How would they deal with you?
I'm not sure. I don't want to try.
Where is your citizenship now?
I'm Venezuelan.
You are a Venezuelan?
Yes.
What, do you have a permanent green card here in the United States?
Yeah.
Where's your politics these days? Where do you come down on politics, or do you want to say?
Well, I try to be as socially aware as possible. Let's put it that way.
And have you ever been involved directly in politics? I mean, this book was supported by Ralph Nader.
Yeah.
And did you have any sense that if he supported the book, he would either do something positive or do something?
No, I
were you
think
worried about anything?
There is no possibility anything. This book can create any negativity. I mean, this book is all positive. This is something that we all need to know. This is work that needs to be done.
Here's some more photographs from your book. The yard of a housing project in Lincoln Heights during the 4th of July. And you can see little kids here in what is backyard swimming pools. Yeah. And right next to it, you have this photograph of July 4th, 2004. Private party with live jazz on the roof of the Latrobe building, corner of 15th and S Streets in Northwest Washington. And you can see down here in the foreground, people standing on the roof, looking out with fireworks in the background. What's the symbolism of those two photographs?
Well, it's just, I try hard to show how people have fun in 4th of July, maybe the most important national date. And I went to both extremes of society. I spent time, for 2 consecutive years, I spent time in Southeast and also spent time in Northwest. And I just wanted to show the differences. People are having fun in both
Here's
places.
Northeast at Clay Terrace, part of Lincoln Heights Public Housing Development. And next to that is a man sleeping on the sidewalk of Massachusetts Avenue on the 4th of July in Northwest. And again, Northwest is where things are a bit different than they are in the other three quadrants?
Yeah, definitely. It's
How would
where
you
the
describe
affluent people live.
The affluent people.
Yes.
Did
The
you-
ones that live in the district, yes.
You know, in the introduction of this book, somebody by the name of Fred Richin, can you tell us who he is?
Fred Richin is a professor at NYU. Is someone who's been involved with documentary and photojournalism for a long time. He's a personality in the world of photojournalism, and he gently agreed to review my work, and he wrote the foreword.
And in the foreword he writes, Kike Arnal, who is Venezuelan, decided to enter the shadows that rim glitzy press conferences and sought-after soirees. Amazed that so many lives were festering away within a few minutes' walk of a transcendent power, they reminded him of some of the barrios in his native country. Venezuela is 18 places ahead of Washington, D.C. on the life expectancy list.
Well, that's quite a striking statistic.
And do you see a similarity between the barrios of Venezuela?
Yeah, in some areas, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Not only Venezuela, in Colombia or in Brazil. Yeah, definitely.
Are there rich areas in a place like Caracas?
The contrast is huge. Yeah.
Back to your 92 photos. Another 4th of July barbecue in Marshall Heights, an economically depressed neighborhood of Ward 7 in Anacostia.
Yep.
How would you describe Anacostia?
Well, it's a place with, I wouldn't say the housing is bad, but it's a place where you don't want to make a mistake at night, for example. You don't want to walk in Anacostia into the wrong street because you can get in troubles. There is a lot of dignity, but there are also a lot of problems that people in Anacostia have to come up.
Classical concert on a hot summer night at the U.S. Capitol. Again, all white people.
Yep.
Should these white people feel guilty about having this fun and pleasure on the Capitol?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm not sure they should. I don't think they should feel guilty, but we all should think, why is only the white crowd going to these events? I mean, of course, there is something that is not necessarily working.
Homeless men crossing railroad tracks as they leave their provisional homes under Highway 395 on the District of Columbia line.
Yeah, I took that from the bridge. Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, I knew that people were living down there because I saw boxes and under the bridge. So I went a couple of times to see activity to photograph them.
Darrell Fraser miraculously survived being shot 27 times at Berry Farm Southeast in 1991. Age 32 in this photograph, Darrell was worried that his aggressor had been recently released from prison and might repeat his attack. Why then did he let you take his photograph?
I asked him and he agreed. It was good. So
How'd you find him?
I was actually walking on the streets. As I said before, I spent many days walking, talking to people.
You go by yourself?
A lot of times by myself. Sometimes someone came with me. You would be surprised how cool and how open people can be when you are honest and you talk to them.
Explain this photo, trying to decide what to bring with them.
Well, this house, this apartment building was boarded, and they were given like half an hour just to pick their things, and they were going to board it up to put the boards back. So the building was closed. Right
below it is a man evicted from his building, takes what he can carry. The apartment building was
the other one.
Boarded up 15 minutes. Yeah, it's not that one, right? That's a team from the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs of the district boards up the building.
That's the same building. They are working on they were the ones who removed the boards, allow people to get in, pick the things, and they were putting the boards back.
And the one I was reading is the man walking out of the apartment.
That's the same man just taking his things out, that bag.
What do they tell you when you talk to them about?
Well, at this situation, they didn't want to talk much. They were in a hurry, they were frustrated, they actually were very anxious, and it wasn't easy for them to talk to me.
In this photograph, you have actually a picture of a photograph on the wall, and you can see the cracks in the wall, and there's another one right next to it. What's this?
This is a squad, a place, an abandoned home in Northwest, actually, and I thought it was incredible to see these memories of life in the wall. The place was falling apart, but there were still this photograph of family photographs.
This is the longest cut line of all of them. I mean, documenting what this is. A boy uses a computer at RL Christian Community Library, which closed in 2009. In 2004, all of the 440 public computers in the library were down for almost a month. The system has since improved. 6 years after Ralph Nader founded the D.C. Library Renaissance Project to call attention to the plight of the district's public libraries and bring them more resources. Did he bring them more resources?
I think so, yeah. They did.
You know anything about this little fella here at the
No,
computer?
that was a while ago. But look at his headphone. It doesn't look very well.
Taped up. Feeding the hungry in Washington is partially done through mobile kitchens, largely supported by volunteers. This relieves pressure on centralized relief operations. What does that mean?
Well, they just have vans moving around the city, so homeless people have to go to a specific place, distant place. They just go to the vans and get their food there.
Do you talk to this young lady who's passing the food out?
I just asked them if it was okay for me to photograph. I told them what I was doing, and they thought it was perfect.
Did you ever ask them why they do it? Why they get involved in this kind of thing?
Well, not to these particular people, but I did spend a lot of time with them, non-for-profit workers, and a lot of them have their very strong belief, social belief. They have to help people. They have to do something, because if they don't do it, no one is going to do it.
Where's this?
This is in 16th Street. This is in, sorry.
It actually says here it's a emergency shelter in Mount Pleasant.
Mount Pleasant. This is a shelter in Mount Pleasant, and it's actually I think it's been removed since I took the photograph. These are people waiting to access to the shelter.
And then here's the shelter.
That's the shelter. And when I took that photo, it really reminded me of the concentration camps in World War II.
They're trailers.
Yeah.
You say that composed of a few trailers, the shelter provides 90 beds per night.
Yeah, this particular one.
Who gets in?
First come, first serve. They screen that the trailer, what they're doing, they're getting screened just to see if they're bringing drugs or weapons inside of the shelter.
On a cold winter night, two homeless people share the sidewalk in front of the National Gallery of Art on Pennsylvania Avenue. The heating system of the buildings along this major avenue keeps the surface of the sidewalk warm throughout the night. What time of night did you take this?
It was around 11, midnight.
How late were you out taking some of these?
Many times I was until very late.
And how often would you find somebody on the streets near one of the major monuments?
this is very common. I mean, you could find them anytime.
A homeless man looks into a coffee shop at 17th and L Street Northwest. There were nearly 15,000 homeless people in the capital as the time you took this photograph, and this man is outside looking in.
Yeah. Isn't that incredible?
Do you just walk around in these places until you see a shot and pull your camera out?
Well, I was going to meet someone in that coffee shop, and I saw the situation, and I pulled the camera, and I photographed it.
Did you talk to this man, Walter Lee Klein?
Yeah. I talked to him and to his son.
And what do you remember from the conversation?
Well, he wasn't very talkative. He was feeling bad. And right after that, I was at CCNV, the Shelter for Creative Nonviolence, which is one of the largest shelters in the world.
It's about 2 blocks from here.
It's pretty close, yes, to the capital. And the social worker that took me down to this area of the shelter called the police. They brought an ambulance and took him to the hospital, and he was in pretty bad shape due to diabetes coma or something like that. I'm not sure, but I tend to think that if we weren't there, maybe he could have passed away in 1 or 2 days. You never know.
And this was all back in 2004?
2005? 2004, 2005.
D.C. riot police ready to move against protesters during the 2005 presidential inauguration.
Yeah, I just wanted to show and talk about the social dynamics, how African American and white people relate in the city.
I must say, this was probably the picture that I would at least expect in this book, and I want you to explain it. And our audience, first of all, let me tell you, our audience who's in the picture, they'll know these people from appearing on this network. John Fund from the Wall Street Journal, Grover Norquist, who runs his own association, Americans for Tax Reform, and Senator Lamar Alexander, and they're in a meeting. What is the meeting?
It's a Wednesday meeting that Grover Norquist puts together. I think he's been doing it for a long time. And I was granted access, and I thought it was great to photograph the powerful. I think I don't have many of those photographs, but it's good to have a list to include one.
Why did he give you access?
He thought that the project was interesting. He thought it was good to do it.
So he knew what you were doing?
Yeah, he knew that I was photographing the city. I was photographing life in Washington, how the city is.
Did he know that his picture would be sandwiched in between a lot of people who aren't doing very well?
I'm not sure. At the moment, we weren't sure about the final content of the book neither. You know, how many pictures we were going to use, what the quality of the pictures and all that. D.C.
police detain an underage driver.
Yeah, that happened one of those nights riding with the police.
And that's right next to this. Students from the exclusive National Cathedral School arrive in a limousine to the school's winter formal. That's in Northwest Washington, and that's the National Cathedral right back there, and that's obviously a limo. And here again are mostly white young people going to this event.
It's a useless comparison. I just tried to...
Did you ask their permission?
Yeah.
And did they know what you were doing?
Yeah. I mean, they knew that I was working on a project trying to document life in the city.
And here's another photograph from there. Invitees arrive at the winter formal at the National Cathedral School. D.C. police guarded the event, Northwest Washington. That's December of 2004.
Same social dynamics.
A packed Friday night at Dream, a nightclub in Northeast with a 1,000-person capacity. It was regarded as the best nightclub in the city by the Washington Post, the place to see and to be seen for the club set. And right next to that, what's the symbolism of all this?
Not just young couple having fun. And I just wanted to show a little bit of how the diversity of the city and how different social classes have fun and enjoy, and also talk about teenage pregnancy, which was an important subject matter.
A teen mother with her baby at Clay Terrace, a public housing project in the 8th Ward Northeast. The teen pregnancy rate in Washington, D.C. is one of the highest in the United States.
Yep.
Where was this? Do you remember it?
Yeah,
Clay Terrace?
This is Clay Terraces. Yes, that was a place that I went many times to photograph, and I got some confidence from the people there.
What were you getting at here? A playground in an affluent neighborhood in Northwest. Child care is a privilege in Washington where serious problems associated with neglected youth are rampant in poor areas of the city.
And just, again, it's going back to that idea of showing the social dynamics of Washington.
Where did you get your interest in all this?
I was always interested in social documentary.
Why? Where?
I don't know. It's something that grew on me when I started to take photograph. I started to take photograph because of I was a climber and I was going to different places around the world to climb, and all of a sudden I discovered that I had a passion for social issues and to understand people, and I felt interested in a lot of the problems. So I started to develop my career as a photojournalist.
How old were you when you started being interested in photography?
I was always interested in photography. I had my first camera when I was about 15 years old.
This is a photograph of a girl mourning during the funeral of her 3-week-old baby in the now predominant Latino neighborhood of Mount Pleasant. Did you notice any difference between Latino neighborhoods, white neighborhoods, black neighborhoods?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe Latinos and black neighborhoods are more similar, and they tend to mix. The white is the more affluent the people are, the better looking the neighborhoods and the more safe.
A relative of the deceased infant takes a last minute to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And then the next one is the actual burial of a 3-week-old infant. Where is that? Do you know?
That's a cemetery right in north of the city in Maryland, but these are Washingtonians.
How did you find this series of photos?
This is working with an organization in Washington.
What's the organization?
Sorry for that.
That's all right. Here's an illegal immigrant from Chiapas, Mexico, sells flowers on East Capitol Avenue.
The organization is called Mary's Center. Mary's Center.
Okay. And this photograph here?
This is taken in South Capitol, and I just met this guy and talked to him, and he didn't speak in Spanish, English. He's been here for only like a couple of months.
Here's a series of photographs that I'm sure the Washington folks will love to see. Prostitutes waiting for clients on K Street. We hear about K Street all the time. Is this downtown where the lobbyists live?
That is very close to the White House and also very close to Capitol Hill.
Now, when right next to that, by the way, is a photograph of the Washington Monument. Back to the prostitutes. Did you have to ask their permission?
They basically ignore me. I wanted to talk to them, but they ignore me. You know, they didn't want to talk. I'll tell you a story with the next photo.
Yeah, this next photo is probably one most people will remember.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the story about this photo. I was driving around late at night, and I found these kids, and I thought, well, there are kids having fun, and I want to photograph kids having fun. You know how young people have fun in the city. And I got close to them, and I asked them, hey guys, where are you going? And they said, leave us alone, we are working. And then is when I realized that I was talking to prostitutes. I didn't know until then.
Marcos, a Guatemalan boy, sells flowers on Pennsylvania Avenue. You say he spoke no English. That's the same fellow from the other photograph?
No, it's a different fellow, a different country.
Next to that, Anthony L. Wash and his son Anthony Jr. playing golf at Langston Golf Course.
Yeah. You know what is important about the other photo that I find interesting is that all these international organizations are based in Washington, but even if you walk outside, if they walk outside of their offices, they find these situations, you know.
5-year-old Marcus Johnson living in D.C. Village.
Yeah,
next to it, a memorial for Dion Davis, 18, and Wilbur Thomas.
Yeah, they were shot in Southeast.
How often would you get a call from somebody and say, hurry over there, there's a photograph to be taken because of something that's just happened?
Well, the time when I was working here, I had a network of people trying to help me, and every once in a while I used to get a phone call from someone saying, hey, this happened, you know, this kid was shot, there's a funeral, please come.
This is a piece of a mirror right here in the center, and the man's obviously having a reflection. It's a heroin addict by the name of Sean Andre. Shoots up his jugular vein on Davidson Avenue, or Division Avenue in Southeast in 2003. And next to that is heroin addict Sean Andre is geeking. What's geeking mean?
It's playing with the blood in the mirror. It was also a new term for me.
Shooting up his jugular vein. Did he agree? Or I
yeah,
guess you didn't,
absolutely.
You don't really...
I mean, if he didn't agree, I wouldn't
But you don't show his face full. Was that an agreement?
No. Just that it was a better photograph. I don't think he would have mind at all to show his face. I mean, I told him what I was doing. He said, "Man, if this is going to help people to understand what we go through, go ahead and take my photograph." But that composition-wise, that's the best photo. So that's what I picked it.
Paramedics suggested that this man here suffering a possible overdose used heroin. How much of that did you see, heroin in Washington?
A lot.
Surprised?
Yeah, I was surprised.
Why?
I didn't expect it. As I said before, a lot of this, I discovered this as I was moving around and I was talking to more people. I discovered more and more. So it was surprising.
You said you spent 250
about
days?
Yeah.
Over how many years?
Over a period of 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah. At the beginning, I was living in New York. I moved here for about 3 months. And then, since I felt I didn't have the project that I wanted, I didn't have the amount, the photograph that I needed to show what was happening in the city, I started to come like once a month for a week.
A minister addresses the assembled during the service for Lavelle Kendall Jones in Anacostia. What's the background?
It's the church where the funeral is happening, and they are praying for him. This was an important case because the kid was a very good football player, and he was shot by gangs. They never figured out who killed him.
He was at Ballou High School. His student shot to death on Sunday, April 25th, 2005, while returning from a nightclub with his cousins. What was he doing at a nightclub at age 16? Did you find
That's a
out?
good question. Yeah, I don't know. I guess he was having fun. Maybe it was too late for him. I don't know.
When you see all this, what do you want to do about it?
Well, as a photographer, as a photojournalist, all I can do is just show it. That's what I have to do.
I mean, do you have a sense that something should be done?
Of course.
Is there a way to write this?
Absolutely. I mean, what we are doing now is to show it to people. People can and politicians and activists, they can use this as a beginning just to do what they have to do. But definitely there are things that needs to be addressed,
This is an interesting one. Brothers in Wheelchairs is a group of 4 African Americans, Wayne, William, Chris, and Sean, who become paraplegics after spinal cord injuries caused by gunshots. They perform together in a rap band. All of them live in the CCNY shelter in Washington. They have been working together for a while and were preparing a CD, music, back in 2005. Were they each shot in different situations?
Yeah. They were shot in different situations, yes.
Did you ask them about that?
Yeah.
What did they tell you? How did they get shot?
Some of them have different explanations. Some of them were involved in things that they shouldn't have been involved, crimes, or some of them were just victims of robbery.
Did you hear their music?
Actually, when I was with them, they didn't have their CD ready yet.
Barbed wire fence around the basketball court at Oak Hill Youth Center, the infamous District of Columbia Youth Correctional Center located in Laurel, Maryland, 25 miles away from the city. Why is it located so far away from the city?
I'm not sure, actually. I guess they decided to take it out of the city for convenience. I don't know. Oak Hill was built long time ago.
Why is it infamous?
What is what?
Why is it infamous? The correctional center?
Because for many years it had a lot of human rights abuses and issues inside, and finally it's been closed. But for about 20 years, lawyers, social activists, they tried to close it down. They put a lot of pressure in the city's administration just to close it down.
Here's a 14-year-old boy in his cell at Oak Hill.
Yep.
You say that's closed down.
Yeah.
Do you like to work with light like that?
Yeah, I like it.
11-year-old boy and his fellow players on the basketball court at Oak Hill Junior Detention Center.
Same place.
And then you have an Oak Hill inmate at a cell door. How did you ask him to do that, or did you just see it?
No, he was looking. I was outside. I was taking photographs, and kids were looking through the windows.
You have to get his permission to put this photo in here. So you had to sign something.
Yep.
And how did you determine that he had to sign and some of the others didn't?
Well, this is all these pictures. You don't really recognize their identities. So that's what's my deal with the. They are shot in a way that you don't get to recognize their identities.
This is Martin, an ex-Mara Salvatrucha
Yeah.
gang member. What's Salvatrucha? Mara
It's
Salvatrucha.
a gang organization from Salvador. And there are, since the Salvadorian community is large here, I guess there were some members.
Required
in
to
the
live
city.
outside the city.
Yep.
He had a 17-year-old girlfriend and a 1-year-old son at the time of the photo, and that says, "Get rich or die trying."
Yeah.
Why do young folks do tattoos like that? Did you ever ask them?
I don't know. Has some meaning for him. There is a band. There's a guy now that uses that as a name, but that was before this guy came up.
Before we end this, you have some video on your website, and I want to run it. There's a clip of a documentary. What are we watching? Did you shoot this?
Yes, this is a video I produced about disease in the Amazon for Discovery Channel Canada. It's about Yanomamis. There was an epidemic of malaria in the Amazon, and I spent a month doing a documentary for Discovery Channel Canada about them.
How much work have you done for the Discovery Channel?
Not much. This is maybe the only piece I did for them. Yeah, I worked for other production companies, but this is the only one I did for Discovery Channel Canada.
Would you rather shoot motion or stills?
I like both. I think they are similar, at the same time they are different. Maybe the stills is even harder to photograph.
What are you working on right now?
I'm working on that cluster bombs project. I want to do a documentary, to finish a documentary about victims of cluster bombs, about life after a cluster bomb accident. And I'm working also on a project about a community in Colombia, in Western Colombia, a region called Chocó.
Back to your 92 photographs on the District of Columbia. Here's the reverse slam dunk at J.C. Nall School in Marshall Heights, Southeast in 2002. Now that was before, wasn't it? I mean, it was one of the earliest shots you got.
That's at the end of 2002, yeah.
Right next to that is a homeless person sleeping at a bus stop on a cold fall night, Columbia Road Northwest. Yep. Again, what time of night, do you remember?
That was maybe midnight. It was very cold. I was surprised on how cold, and this person wasn't wearing any thick coat. You know, I just wanted to mention, if people want to see more of this, some of this work online, they can visit a web page we set up for the book. It's called www.intheshadowofpower.com, and there they will find all the events we are doing to promote the book or to promote the work, and also they can see a selection of the photograph.
This is a needle exchange program run by Prevention Works, waiting for the mobile unit to exchange their used syringes for new ones in 2005. Among other benefits, the participants receive HIV testing, counseling, and prevention education.
I thought that was a very good idea, but the city, at that time, the city wasn't giving funds for this kind of initiative. I think that has changed as well. But the idea of promoting the needle exchange is, I mean, it definitely helps to lower the cost of healthcare in long term.
Getting into a lot of drug photographs on HIV, this is a 51-year-old Patricia. I must say I was surprised to see her. You don't give her last name, but you can tell who this is. Yeah. And she's a participant in Prevention Works needle exchange program about to shoot heroin. Carver Langston Northeast is where it was. This photograph was taken at the Washington Arboretum. Why there?
Well, because that's the place she wanted to do it, where she wanted to go to do it.
Why did she
agree?
agree?
She was open. Well, as I said before, I talked to people and they say, well, go ahead, do it.
Show
my problem. I know this is what I'm doing is bad. I need support. I need help. I need to erase. I mean, this is a problem that we are all facing in the poor neighborhood. So,
a homeless, mentally disturbed woman expresses her gratitude to a passerby who brought her some food at DuPont Circle area. Now,
that's
DuPont
in front of Whole Foods, actually, in DuPont Circle. And I was walking with this doctor, and he brought some food to this woman. This woman immediately grabbed his hand and kissed him.
There's a last group of photos here. Did you put it at the end on purpose?
Yeah, it has a sequence, and it's just finishing the book. I thought it was the most convenient place for this series at the end.
This is at Joseph's house. Where's that?
Well, Joseph's house, if you let me expand a little bit on that, is the most incredible place I met through my 3 years period. This is a place where it's a hospice where people with no other possibilities go to die. If it wasn't for Joseph's house, they would die right on the street, right?
Woman is 42 years old.
Yeah.
Name's Rainey. And back here in the photo right before it, I'm going to show it because I want to mention this woman's name because it's in the cut line. Patty Woodell.
Patty Woodell is the director of Joseph's house.
She hydrates Rainey, a 42-year-old woman with AIDS. Washington has the highest number of people living with AIDS in the United States, 1,777 per 1,000 population, estimated at 10 times the national average according to the Centers for Disease Control. Did you ever ask anybody why we have so much of it here and why they can't stop it?
Yeah, I asked, but I don't get any precise answer about it. I mean, this is a situation, it repeats in many cities, but the interesting fact is that Washington has the worst statistics. That's very interesting. I mean,
this photograph shows Rainey a few hours after she died. Mortuary workers shroud Sonia, a woman in her early 40s before. Again, why this photo? And it seems to be this would be one of the more sensitive ones.
Well, I think we need to show this. We need to show people what's going on, and this is part of
Did Rainey know you were going to show this? Did she give you permission?
Oh, she gave me permission to photograph the whole process she was going through, and I spent a lot of time. Joseph's house is a place where I went for weeks before I even pulled the camera out of my bag.
Really?
Yeah.
And why is that?
Because I felt that I wanted to understand more, I wanted to get to know the people, and I wanted to be accepted. And I literally spent weeks going there before I pulled the camera out of the bag.
And did you spot Rainey as the one that you wanted to take?
I photographed different people. Those weren't the only photograph I took. I took a lot of photographs, but those are maybe the most compelling images. So that's why those are in the book.
Last photograph in the book is the Washington Monument behind a temporary fence. Why is this the last one?
It's kind of a metaphorical image, I think. It resembles, to me, it shows a little bit what the city is like, you know, a fence, division, birds going away, flying, the overcast sky, you know, it's a metaphorical image. I like it.
This is a book that we started showing an hour ago, the cover of, and it's the photograph taken about 3 blocks from the White House at McPherson Square. You see the White House, that's right near the metro where the subway is, in the shadow of power. Ralph Nader wrote this introduction, and it's published by Charta. Who's Charta?
Charta is an Italian art publisher.
Now spelled C-H-A-R-T-A.
Yeah. Yes, you know Italian. Carta. Like Carta.
Did they expect to make money off of this book? And obviously, do you expect to make money off this book?
I don't expect to make any money out of this book. I guess Carta will, yeah. And I hope the contribution of having such this kind of work out is, it will be a contribution not only for the publisher or for the center, but for everyone.
Kike Arnal, been in this country 12 years, from Venezuela.
Yep.
Lives in Oakland, California. Took all the photographs in this book with a Leica, black and white. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you very much.
For a DVD copy of this program, call 1-877-662-7726. For free transcripts or to give us your comments about this program, visit us at qna.org. Q&A programs are also available as C-SPAN podcasts.